The NFL turned into a passing league years ago, so it's no surprise there's only one 1,000-yard rusher in the playoffs. Minnesota's Adrian Peterson led the league with 1,485 yards rushing, and he's the only one of the 7 backs to surpass 1,000 still playing. That doesn't mean the other 11 playoff teams can't run the ball. Injuries kept a few guys from reaching 1,000. Carolina's Jonathan Stewart, 989, and Pittsburgh's DeAngelo Williams, 907, came close. The Panthers also got 636 yards rushing and 10 TDs on the ground from quarterback Cam Newton. Denver got 863 yards from Ronnie Hillman and 720 from C.J. Anderson. Hill and Giovani Bernard combined for 1,524 yards for Cincinnati. By the way, 11 players in the playoffs had 1,000 yards receiving. Minnesota Vikings cornerback Xavier Rhodes has worked his way into being one of the league's best in coverage under the tutelage of coach Mike Zimmer and defensive backs coach Jerry Gray. But even in his third year, the 2013 first-round draft pick endured his share of growing pains. The struggles weren't so much about getting beaten by receivers as they were about being too physical and committing costly penalties. Rhodes was flagged 7 times for holding this season, the second most in the NFL behind Brandon Browner of New Orleans with 11. Rhodes was also called 4 times for pass interference, tied for 4th most in the league, with Desmond Trufant of Atlanta the leader with 6. Rhodes took 1 personal foul penalty, 2. 9 of those 12 flags against him were accepted by the opponent. At one point earlier in the season, Gray made Rhodes put on boxing gloves in practice so he'd learn better how to cover a receiver without risking a penalty. Using an open hand instead of a closed fist was one change he made. "I just had to change up my technique. That's all it was," Rhodes said. "Me being too aggressive down the field. I just had to learn to know where the receiver was at, and not to push him around or grab him too much. So that was the main goal. That's what we worked on." Seahawks quarterback Russell Wilson is now getting immortalized in a comic book. Storm Comics released this week a comic book based around the 2-time Super Bowl quarterback, the latest athlete to be profiled by the company. The comic, Fame, Russell Wilson, was released in print and digital platforms. Writer Michael Frizzell said he is not into football, but was drawn to Wilson's story of being a third-round pick by the Seahawks in 2012 and earning the starting quarterback job as a rookie. Wilson led Seattle to its first Super Bowl title a year later and back to the Super Bowl a season ago before losing to New England. Wilson signed an $87.6 million 4-year extension with Seattle before the start of this season. "I'm not a football fan, I'll admit it," Frizzell said, prior to researching Russell Wilson. "The only football biography I ever read was on Joe Namath, but there was something that grabbed me about Wilson's story. I found him to be fascinating." Storm Comics has previously done biographies of Alex Rodriguez, Jackie Robinson and David Beckham among others.